okay? And in a way that is the same information that you need if, you know, some other team member goes like, oh, what was this guy thinking? Or what was he thinking at the half a year ago? Okay? So in that way, you can constantly revisit this and reevaluate, you know, and it's an efficient process. So so you populate, you know, you populate with the categories and the components, okay? And what it then does, I'm not going to show you that now because, you know, these things like notoriously don't quite work when you exactly need them to work right now. So the way we represent, so uncertainty, right? Each component, you know, you can, when you edit the component, as you've seen, you know, you can choose an uncertainty. At the moment, it's going to be a range between, you know, 0 and 9. Okay? It doesn't matter. You can, you know, we could always scale it, right? So each component has an uncertainty from like a minimum, like 0 would be, I know absolutely everything there is about this, okay, right? If you have a maximum uncertainty of 9, okay, right? It's like, well, I kind of think this is important, but I really haven't looked at anything at all. I don't know anything, you know, whatever, okay, right? So what the uncertainty in the beginning is not necessarily so important, okay? What you need to start to do is to assign something and you think about what is my uncertainty, okay? So there's two types of uncertainties, if you like, broadly speaking. I mean, then you can, you know, classify that. But the first one, and we have a choice for that, is I think the world knows the answer to this somewhere. I just don't know it. Okay? The second is, I don't think this information actually exists, right? Or, you know, like it is not known. So let's take a couple of examples. So if you have an uncertainty where you think that the information doesn't exist, okay, let's say it's in a technology space, right? In order to find out, then you might actually have to go into the lab and do some experiments, right? If it's in the market space, for example, then you might have to go out and do a survey, okay, because people have not asked your potential customer those questions, right? Or you may have to go out and talk to those people, okay? Because maybe, but in this case, you know, somebody might have the answer, you just haven't talked to them yet, right? But it doesn't really matter so much whether you just happen to not know it or whether nobody knows it, okay? It's still your uncertainty in the innovation process, okay? Now, in order to reduce uncertainty, there is always a specific cost to that, right? If you go and have to do an experimental series over half a year, that's going to cost you a lot of time, okay? More time than, you know, reading up in a journal article of somebody who's done that already, okay? So so you're assigning the uncertainty doesn't necessarily, like it should be the uncertainty that you really attach at the moment when you record this, okay, to this component of what you know about it, okay? You should not really bias this towards why you don't know about it or necessarily how difficult it would be, you know, to find out or not to find out, okay? But those are obviously important pieces of saying, like, okay, what am I going to research next, okay? But when you think about the uncertainty, it should really be recording, like, at this moment in time, okay, this is the uncertainty that I personally, as an innovator, attach to this, right? Yeah.
In the very beginning, you said that uncertainty is our opportunities, and you should pay more attention on uncertainties. But you mean uncertainty in according to the information which does not exist yet. Yes? Mm-hmm. So it's not about an uncertainty which I don't know. Right?
Right. So, well, the point is, it doesn't matter, okay? I'll get to the opportunity in a minute, okay? It doesn't matter whether you just don't know it, or nobody else in the world knows it. Okay, the fact is you don't know it. You are the innovator. It's your project. Okay? The method of how you're going to find out about it is different. Right? So either you can ask somebody who knows, okay, that's a lot easier, okay, or you have to go do it yourself, generate the information yourself. Right? And obviously this could be from, you know, doing a simple market survey to Nobel Prize research. Okay? Obviously it takes a different amount of time, right? So what I'm saying is that, you know, why you don't know it is not really relevant. The relevant thing is that you don't know it as the owner of the innovator, as the owner of the project. Okay? In terms of opportunity, so the reason why we talk about uncertainty, okay, where we, you know, chose this word to be central, okay, is that you can look at uncertainty in two different ways. You can look at it in the positive way, which is, or let's do the negative way first. In the negative way, it's like you can say, I don't know this, it may not work out, therefore it's a risk. Or on the positive side, I don't know this, but it may work out, therefore it's an opportunity. Okay? The point is, without uncertainty, and both are simultaneously important, right? If you, without uncertainty, you cannot create anything. Because obviously you can't have opportunity. Okay? But it's always married to risk. So in a way this is an inherent risk measurement process. Okay? You know, for those who are a little bit, you know, on the finance side, it actually would also be your investment model, okay? Right? Because what does investment, you know, finance do? They're trying to measure risk of the investment and, you know, put a price to it, okay? So in a way, this is the inherent risk measurement, okay, you know, as a function of time of the innovation process, right? And you could actually, and you know, we'll develop this further and further, but you could, you know, conceive of attaching some other additional metrics to it and say like, okay, well, this amount of investment is kind of worth it at the moment because I kind of know, based on all this aggregate information put together in this way, I know what my total risk is at this point. Right? So you can actually translate that into a financing model. So, but in any case, the so once you have made your changes, okay, so I'll tell you how these bubbles work. Okay, so there is an uncertainty associated. I didn't want to do that. Sorry. There is an I can't do this here right now. Oh no, sorry. So as you can see, so how do we measure? So each component has a specific uncertainty. Okay, but again, this is not rocket science. Okay, this is not like, oh, my uncertainty is like 8.1 as compared to 8.2, right? It's the sum, you know, it's the sum of all the uncertainties, you know, that matter, okay? And you know, those sort of like tiny variations are irrelevant, okay? What it is, you know, it should give you a guide towards what's my next risky thing, what should I actually reduce if it's, you know, if I think I can, at a decent cost of time, okay, find out that piece of information, right? And we'll get to this iteration part in a minute. But the graphical representation of this, okay, is that you know, that what you see is like, you know, these are, it's a closed packed, it's always like a closed packed circle geometry, right? So each circle of categories, okay, is the closed packed representation of the things that are in it, okay? Now sometimes these things fit a little bit better and sometimes these fit a little bit less good, okay? So your fill percentage, you know, usually varies like, I don't know, between 50 and 70% or something like that, okay? But again, this doesn't matter. It's just about the relation, okay, to help you, you know, guide this when you have many components and many categories, right? to see like, okay, well, how do they relate to each other? So you have this depth relation, like what kind of level are you working on, okay? And you have the relation on each level, okay, to each other, right? So mathematically, there really isn't a closed form solution of calculating. You would think there is. I hope, in the beginning I thought there was, but there isn't, okay? There is no way to calculate how these circles fit into another circle, okay? I think it's what's called an n-hard problem, okay? So at the moment, there is a graphical simulation that it takes you through, and you just sort of like, I want to automate that and put this in the background, but at the moment it's sort of a time thing. So you basically like just see these circles move, and and try to find the best sort of fit, and you can decide when to stop this process. This is just a matter of calculating how these fit at the moment. Okay, so you can actually see this happening. Eventually, I want to put this in the background, but there's all sorts of algorithms that depending on the computational cost and the accuracy, and that's something I still have to figure out. But in any case, so and then so once you finish your editing of the universe, and you recalculate how the circles fit, just like with editing your executive summary or something, like it gets released to the team, and everybody else can access it and make their changes, and so on and so forth. Okay? Does that so far make sense for everybody? Okay? So this is a way, hopefully, for you to communicate efficiently. You can work on different aspects, okay? And to efficiently communicate, and you can go in and actually see at any given moment in time, well, where is the team at? Okay? And so I encourage you to put a good deal of thought into your research summaries, okay, rather than just reproducing a big part of what you've read, because the reference is there anyway. Anybody can look that up, okay. It's a matter of communicating to your team members or to your own self in the future, okay, what it is that you have been thinking with respect to the innovation process at that time, okay, and how are these references relevant, and how do they back it up, and how good is this reference? Because sometimes you maybe put in there, and it doesn't have to be like a print quality thing, right? You can say like, okay, like I found this reference, I don't think it's good enough. We gotta find a better one, but not now, okay? Because that's not the biggest problem at the moment. That's sort of good enough for now, right? Now, so I want to go now through what do you sort of address next? Okay, what is the uncertainty? And that's what. So in the next phase, we're going to ask you to at least, depending on your team size, to at least do one sort of deep research about at least one aspect of market, one aspect of technology, and one aspect of implementation, right? So up to now you've been populating the universe, but you haven't gone really deep, okay? So about populating the universe, I want to show you something. I don't have a board, okay? So you populate your initial universe, and I want to tie it back to what Gene was talking about, okay? So you populate your initial universe, okay? You put in all the things that you can think of, okay? Your uncertainties grow, your bubbles grow, okay, right? You put in more, okay, grows, okay, right. Now, you might be doing some research and you're trying to reduce the uncertainty, right? But it's not a unidirectional process, remember, right? So what should actually happen in the beginning, okay, this in reality, if this project were longer, it might take a while, okay, is as you after you populated your universe and you start to go deeper, you're trying to reduce some uncertainty, but you actually find out, because of your research, there's these other three aspects that you haven't even thought about, because you didn't know about them, that they were relevant, okay? So in the beginning, it's very, very likely, okay, that your universe grows, okay? Or it may shrink in one part and grow in the other part or whatever, okay? So there is the first phase, and usually would take longer than this class probably if we do it fully comprehensively, okay? It's going to increase, okay, and it's going to somewhat oscillate, okay, until it sort of like finds a stable point at the point where you've pretty much thought of, like, have included everything that's relevant. You haven't resolved it yet. You haven't, you know, reduced the uncertainty of all the things yet, okay? But it'll go through like relatively big changes because you're adding new things that you haven't thought about before, okay, or you hadn't known about before. And that's a perfectly good representation in this, okay? Because your uncertainty should grow, but you're saying like, okay, well, I'm learning more. How should the uncertainty grow? Well, the uncertainty grows, rightly so, because you're learning more about things that you don't know, right? And that should be the case. That's normal, right? And then, you know, as you pretty much know about all the things that you don't know, then you can start to actually, like, you know, learn more in detail about knowing things about the things that you don't know. Okay? And that's good, right? So, you know, just, you know, like the uncertainty growing in the beginning, what I'm saying is it's good. You do research, it might very well be that your uncertainty grows. It's a good thing, okay? It might be that it shrinks because you've thought about that specific aspect, you know, about everything. So, but in the next phase, again, this is an educational thing because obviously, you know, to look at every one of your aspects in every detail takes an enormous amount of time, and you don't have to do that, and the innovation process tells you not to do that, okay? The innovation process, and this is what I want to get to now, tells you that you want to go after the next highest uncertainty, okay? Why? Because you wanted to fail. Is everybody comfortable with that? Or? Yeah? No. So, why do you want your innovation to fail? Okay? Because only if it doesn't do you actually have something. Right? And this is what, I mean, Gene sometimes doesn't like me using the word, but I think it's still okay. So there is a certain schizophrenia about an innovator, okay? On one side, I mean, not really, but you know, on one side, you have to be this great optimist. Okay, you say like, oh, you know, I think this could work and so on through all these difficulties you encounter. But at the same time, okay, this is the time scale. You're the optimist on a time scale of, let's say, months or a year or something like that. Okay, that's the time scale of being an optimist. Okay, on the daily level, you have to be the harshest critic possible. Okay, you have to be so harsh of a critic of your own innovative idea that you ideally cannot find anybody with more desire to make it fail. Okay? Because only if you try hard, okay, and you try everything that you try to make this aspect fail, okay, and it goes through that process, then you know you have something reliable. Okay? And then you can build on this process, you know, because you have a solid foundation. It's like building a house, right? If at any point in time you put in opinions, okay, and you don't mark them as opinions, it's okay to have hypotheses, you know, but you want to say like, this is the intellectual honesty. Oh, this is all I know. I didn't have enough time for this, whatever, you know. Okay, anybody can go back and we can, you know, fill this in. But if you have something which, you know, sort of is what it is, well, it seems to be something that it is not. It seems to be reliable information, but it is not, okay? Then what you're starting to do is you're building a house of cards, right? And you only have to like pull out one card, the whole thing comes down, okay? So you have to really build a brick house here. Does that make sense? Right? And especially with your team. Now, then this is where, you know, this honesty in recording this information is why these research summaries are so important, okay? Because in your team, you need to develop a culture and a trust in the quality of other people's work and judgment. Okay, but judgment, I mean, you know, so that's why it has to be transparent, because you don't necessarily know in the beginning. Right? And it's okay to check up on other people's references, right? because that's how you work together, and like you have to be together as critical as possible of trying to kill this, okay? You know, so because you have to try to do this in order to make it live, right? And it seems a little bit counterintuitive, but if you think about how we learn as human beings, it's actually necessary, because we only learn from from failures. Okay, we're like, oh, that doesn't quite work, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the innovation process, in essence, is a string of little failures that maximize your learning. Okay, at the most efficient rate. Okay, both in time and in money. Okay, so what you go after in terms of reducing the next uncertainty, okay, is really, when we say reduce the highest uncertainty, okay, what we really mean is the thing that is most likely to make it fail as quickly as possible, right? So sometimes you can have a high uncertainty, but it might be very, very, very costly to remove this uncertainty, right? For example, you have to go to the lab, design experiments, get some money for the experiments first, and so on and so forth, okay, right? It may be your highest uncertainty, okay, but if you can go and ask the customer and they say like, that's really not what I want, okay, then it's totally useless to invest that time and money, right? So when we say remove the next highest uncertainty, it's not just about the sheer, size of that, but you keep that in the universe. You know that it's there, right? But in terms of the decision of what you're going to do next, okay, you want to try to make it fail as quickly as possible.
But it costs time, and it's always problem which decision sometimes we have a discussion about some problem, and we have mostly two ways to agree to spare time, to waste time for discussion, a lot of time, enormous time.
You mean in the team?
Yeah,
yes.
In the team, days, not hours.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of energy, a lot of time. So the second way is agree with somebody's opinion and